This is an Algebra 2, Day 14 lesson on factoring polynomials. The objective for today, we'll have two objectives. We're going to learn two things. We're going to learn how to factor out the GCF of a polynomial, and we're going to also factor a trinomial. So prior to beginning, this is the first thing we're going to look at, is factoring common factors out of a polynomial. So you should probably take time and pause the video and copy these steps down. Once you're copied, this is how we work it out. So step 1, you want to factor each term of the polynomial. Secondly, you want to remove the common factors of each term to the outside of the polynomial. Third, you rewrite the factored polynomial, and lastly, you simplify if needed. Always simplify, making it look better. So this first example, what you do is you factor each term of the trinomial. So you have 2 times 2 times x plus sign, bring it down, and we have 2 times 5 times x, and then over here we have, we're running out of space here, minus sign, and I'm actually going to stick it down here because I ran out of space. It's going to be 2 times 5. Now in each of three of these trinomials, we have three trinomials, we have three terms. This is a term, this is a term, and this is a term. We're looking for something that's in all three terms. So I notice that there's a 2 here. I'm looking for a 2 here. There's a 2 in the second term, and then there's a 2 in the third term. Okay, since there's a 2 in all those terms, we could pull out a 2 from the beginning. Then we can look to see if there's any other numbers we could pull out. It looks like there's another 2 here. There's a 2 here, a 2 here, and a 2 here. So we're going to bring out another 2, so we multiply that by 2. Okay. Continuing, there's an x here, and there's an x here, but there's no x over here. So we cannot pull out an x. So there's something else we can really pull out. There's 5s, but there's no 5 in the first term. So we take this 2 times 2, open parentheses, then we have x times x, bring down x squared. Then we bring out the next section, which is a plus. Got the plus sign here. 5 times x, which is 5x. And then lastly, we have just a 5 here. And there's a subtraction sign, so we put a minus 5 right here. Okay? So simplify now. 2 times 2 is 4. X squared plus 5x minus 5. Plus 5x minus 5 is your final answer. Okay? Continuing on, number 2. I'm going to kind of give myself a little bit of space here. Number 2. Actually, I'll leave the steps up there at least so you can see those, okay? Again, steps. Step 1, factor each term of the polynomial. So we have 3 times x, right? That's the first term right here. Second term, positive 3x. Prime factorization is plus 3 times x. Next one, negative 18. We have a negative sign. We have 2 times 3 times 3. Okay? Now, next step, we want to remove the common factors of all three terms. When I look closely, we have a 3 here. Starting with a 3, we know there's a 3 in the second term and a 3 in the third term. Okay? Since they're all there, put down 3. Next, we have another 3 here, but I don't have a 3 in the second term, so I can't really do much. I have a 3 in the third term, but they need to all be there, so that doesn't work. There's an x, but there's no x here, so we can't use an x. So there's nothing else to really try. So all we were able to factor out was this 3. So open parentheses, because it's all being multiplied. We have 3 times x is 3x squared. Bring down the plus sign. All we're left with is this x. We have a minus sign. We have 2 times 3, which is 6. Okay? 3x squared plus x minus 6 is your final factored answer. Now, this could be factored more. Any of these could be factored more. We'll talk about that more later, but just know that that is possible. Okay? Continuing onward here. So those were the examples we just did. These are a couple more examples if you wanted to do these on your own. These are the answers. We have 3n times 3n minus 8. Okay, that's the first one. I think that's right. The next one, you should have this answer, 7 times b squared plus 2b plus 3. Okay, those are the answers. So if you work them out by yourself, you could rewind the video, copy it, and then see if you could get that same answer. Now, the next example, number 5, is really important. Real basic, but still important. We have negative signs in front of all of these interior terms. Okay, when that's the case, we don't really like working with that. And so, what we need to do is we need to factor out that negative sign. So since there's a negative sign, it's almost like we're saying this. We're saying it's like -1 times x plus, there's another -1 times 8 times x, right? Positive and negative. You're wondering, well, how I got that? It's from this negative sign here. Okay? And then we have another plus sign, and then we have -7. Okay? Now, these plus signs are really where the terms are being divided. So, in all of these three terms, you have a -1, -1, and there should be, actually, I'm sorry, there should be a -1 back here. Let me fix that for us. Plus a -1 times 7. Okay? So, when you're looking at all three of them, we could take out a -1. You could either do it two ways. You could put a -1, or you could just put a negative sign. When you become more advanced in math, you could just put a negative sign. So let's just do that. Open parentheses. All we're left here is with positive x squared. We have a plus sign now. 8 times x is 8x, and then plus 7. Now you could, when I'm showing you the next examples, you could actually factor this some more, but for our purposes right now, just factoring out a single term, this is your final answer on that one. Okay, that's the first step. So checking to factor any GCFs is a great way to start with. Now, we're going to factor trinomials. In order to do that, you need to know these steps. You should take a moment to write these steps down. Okay. Step 1, identify the coefficients of A, B, and C of a trinomial. I'll explain that. Step 2, you need to create the factor x box and put A, B, A times C, and B. So this is what I'm talking about when I say the x box. Draw an x like this. Put a line down the center. Put your A here. Put another A here. Put your A times C up in the center. And your B over here. Okay, that's what to start with. Then you're going to go step 3. You're going to find the positive and negative factors of A times C that add up to B. 4, you're going to put factors underneath each A, and I'll explain that. Simplify these fractions in quotes. They're not really fractions. And then use the fractions to write new factored expressions. So, here we go. Number 1, you see that this is actually familiar from the last problem. So remember that last problem when it said x squared plus 8x plus 7. We could actually factor it more, meaning break it apart some more. So for example, we find A, B, and C. So A, B, and C, you find A by finding the squared term first, and it's the coefficient in front. There's no coefficient here, so we know it's a positive 1. We know, so this is going to be our A. Our B is 8 with the plus sign, and our C is 7 with the plus sign. You have to remember to use that, find the sign that's in front of it. That's step 1. Step 2 is create the x box. Okay, so we're creating the x box. We know our A is 1. A times C is positive 7, and our B is 8. Okay, now we're going to go and find the factors of 7 that add up to 8. Okay, so I do it on the side. I do this little chart here. And I ask myself, what times what is equal to 7? So I start with 1 usually. 1 times 7 is equal to 7. Okay, is there anything else? Well, 7 times 1, but you know, you could go backwards on all the numbers. I just go until your numbers start repeating themselves. So 1 times 7. Then, on each, you might have, this one only has one list, but you could have multiple, factors. Then you add each one together. This is positive 1 times positive 7, which is going to be 8. Okay, positive 1 times positive 7 is 8. So what you do is we realize, okay, if this is 8, we want to make sure this number matches with our b here, and it does. So since that's the case, we know that positive 1 and positive 7 are the numbers we want to put in our X box. So we put a positive 1 here, or 7, it doesn't matter. You can put the 7 here, or you can put the 1 there. I'm going to just put the 1 there, positive 7. Then we box these, okay? These look like fractions to me. That's why I call them fractions. But they're not fractions. They're just there as a visual, okay? If you're able to simplify any of these two fractions, then you would, but we can't really simplify them. So what we do is we then create our double parentheses factored form, the skeleton, okay? And we know that in the first, right here is our first, excuse me, this is our first set of numbers. This will go in the first parentheses. So we have a 1, and then we have a plus 1. Over here is our second one, which is our 1 and a plus 7, okay? So if that's the case, we're not done yet. We need to go back to the beginning. We have x squared. We want to figure out what's the square root of x squared. Well, that square root is just x squared. And the square root is actually x. So we put an x and an x, and we are almost done. Now, remember we had a 1 here. This 1 is kind of a redundant one. We don't have to put it here. So what I would recommend doing, whenever you see 1, just you could rewrite it, or just from the beginning you just write x plus 1 times the quantity of x plus 7. And that's it. That's how you do number 1. Okay? Now we're going to do number 2. This is the factored form. Remember, factoring is to break it apart. Continuing on, number 2. Let's work on number 2. I think it's back here. Oh, it's pretty simple. Let's use some bigger numbers, okay? I think we're ready. Let's do 4. 4 is a good one. Ooh, or 5 or 6. Now let's just do 4, okay? Again, find your A. A is 1. There's nothing there. B is 14. C is 40. X box. Okay, so we have our A is 1. A times C is 40. B is 14. We're going to find the factors of, I'm going to erase this to get some more space. Factors of 40, so we write a list 40, put a little line under it, 8, and then we say 1 times 40 is 40. And go in order. Start with 1. Then 2 times what is 40? 2 times 20 is 40. Then go to 3. 3 times what? Well, we know 3 doesn't work, so don't use 3. 4 times what is 40? 4 times 10. 5 times what? 5 times 8. 6 times what? Doesn't work. 7 times what? Doesn't work. 8 times what? Well, we have an 8 here already, so we're going to go backwards if we keep going. Then we add these up. So 1 plus 40 is equal to 41. Is 41 equal to 14 right here? No, it's not. So we know that doesn't work. 2 plus 20 is 22. Does that one work for our B? No, that doesn't work. 4 plus 10 is 14. Is that equal to our B? Yep, this is it. So since that's the case, we know that we could put a 4 or a 10 here and 4 or 10 here. Now, we could continue on here. We know that we're going to start off with 2 parentheses. Square root of x squared is just going to be x. Okay, and x. And then we know these are the coefficients are 1, so it would be redundant to put them in there. So I'm just going to leave them alone. And then we have a plus 4 here and a plus 10, because these are positive 4 and positive 10. If these numbers were negative, you keep it as a negative. Okay, we're only dealing with negative numbers. This is an introductory lesson to this factoring, or these X boxes. So I'm going to conclude the lesson there. Rewind it if you need to, but we'll be working more on these.